So this conversation is gonna be kind of different, and believe it or not, we're gonna talk about fashion or style or identity
Mm.
or somewhere in between. We'll see. And I am very, very, very curious about where this conversation is gonna lead. So it is gonna be very interesting, I'm sure, and it's gonna be very different as well. And so, welcome to the new episode on From Grind to Grace, the show for the alternative entrepreneur, the entrepreneur who's ready to choose freedom first. When freedom is not a destination, when freedom is the path, because when you stop grinding for freedom and start creating a business that feels like freedom in the process, success just tags along. So, that is the mission. My mission with this podcast, and I'm inviting you to join it for yourself, for your children, and for humanity. And the big question I ask on this podcast is, how do you do it? And that's what I talk about with my guests. And so the big question for this specific episode is, what does fashion or style or anything like that have to do with freedom, with grind,
Mm.
and stuff like that? So I want to welcome my guest, Alex, on my show today. How are you, Alex?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are very ready. Just came here straight from the hairdressers.
I did.
So nice to see you. You're looking lovely. So I guess, we're gonna dive into many things. I'm already thinking about 1,000 and
Mm.
more questions. But let's see where the conversation is gonna lead us to. And just for the context, I'm gonna let you to introduce yourself.
Brilliant. So, hi, I'm Alex Stanley. I am a personal stylist, a speaker, a sustainable fashion consultant, and my mission is to help trailblazing women to amplify their confidence, their success, and their impact through the power of their personal style. And a big part of my mission is to really help people to realize what a powerful tool your style is, because I think we've been missold that kind of story or narrative that style is frivolous and meaningless and that it's materialistic to care about what you're wearing. And that's the narrative that I really want to challenge with my work as well.
So, so right there, I have two questions. So one is a quick one. What is more important, style or fashion?
For me, a style, hands down, because fashion, the word fashion to me is all about trends and kind of wearing what people have
Mm.
told you to wear, whereas style is very personal and it's 100% unique to you. And, that's why I am a personal stylist, because I help people on that personal level to discover what works uniquely for them.
Yeah, and so the other question is, so what comes first? Your style and then your identity or your perception of yourself, or the other way around?
I think it's a very what's the word, kind of intertwined topic. Identity and personal style are so closely related. And for me personally, like, my experience was of becoming a mum and kind of losing my identity and having that kind of crisis of identity that comes from having such a big shift in your lifestyle and your priorities and your career and all of those things. And retraining as a personal stylist was actually one of the big foundations of what helped me to overcome that kind of crisis of identity and, you know, transform my confidence and transform how I felt about myself. So I think for me, it all kind of comes together, and it's a tool, like personal style is a tool to help you to reconnect with your identity and how you want to show up and all of those things.
Yeah, very interesting. And you mentioned you lost your identity at some point. Can
Yeah.
we talk a bit more about that? As in what exactly happened, why do you think it happened, and how it manifested itself? What happened next for you?
Yeah, definitely. So my background was as a fashion buyer. So I worked for big global brands like Marks and Spencer and Amazon for about 15 years of my career. And it was my dream career and I absolutely loved it. I was very fortunate that I always kind of knew what I wanted to do, studied at London College of Fashion, went straight into the industry as an assistant buyer on the grad scheme at Marks and Spencer. And in so many ways, my career defined me and who I was, and it was a huge part of my identity. And on becoming a mum, obviously, that was a huge shift in terms of my priorities, my lifestyle, my um, literal like body shape, and all of those things changed a lot. And with that brought that kind of crisis of identity and this questioning of, who am I now? And I don't want to let go of who I was before, but I know I'm a different person now. And, all of these questions were thrown into the mix. And I think with that came this kind of anxiety almost of, trying to find that person and
Mm,
find that identity and that lack of confidence, not only in my physical body and the way that I was showing up, but also in that question of who am I and what do I want to do and how do I want to
mm.
move forward, in a sense of my career. So I think a lot of those questions had already started to come up for me pre having my daughter, because I had started to reevaluate what was important to me. And I'd realized that there was quite a gap that had come between my values and the career and the life that I was living. So I felt that misalignment before that. And then that was just a big catalyst for that shift in identity.
So, so I'm wondering, how did it feel? And I so resonate with what you're saying. I guess I've experienced that with style specifically when I was in corporate, and I had to wear what they call smart casual, and
Mm,
it was just so not me. And I
yeah.
think it was part of the reason why working in the office didn't feel right.
Mm,
And now that I'm listening to you, I think it was affecting my performance because I was
yeah,
not feeling comfortable.
absolutely, it does.
It's a strange one.
Mm.
But what that loss of identity, like what did it feel like for you?
I think at the time it felt quite scary and quite, it's almost like you're on a search for um that reconnection with yourself, I suppose. And I think that's why retraining as a personal stylist was so powerful for me, because it helped me with that reconnection in, you know, who am I? What do I enjoy? How do I want to show up? And getting back to me rather than, as we've discussed, like all of those external messages of, this is who you should be and this is what you should wear, and those shoulds that can quite easily take over. And actually, what is it that I want and what is it that I enjoy? And what is it that works for me?
Mm.
That was all really powerful in that kind of transformation.
So how was it affecting how you were operating every day and showing up for yourself and others?
I think it was, like I mentioned, in terms of that that kind of mental state. I think there was quite a lot of anxiety that was showing up in that questioning of who I was. I think I was probably, I don't know, less engaged than perhaps I had been before. I've always been very ambitious and very driven, and it's there's almost a need to kind of pause and like come back to yourself, I think, when you go through that shift. Um, so yeah, I'd say those were the main things.
And so do you think you were not showing up as powerfully as you
Definitely.
could actually?
Yeah.
Was that a like I was in that place at some point as well, and it's
Mm.
not a good feeling. And
No.
I know, like, I have the expertise, I have all the knowledge, and I have all the, strategies and all the things, and I'm still not being myself, and I know it wasn't a way for me, showing up
Mm.
as me powerfully, which otherwise I can, like not in life or,
Mm.
other areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was taking away your power. So what started happening at some point? What shifted for you and why?
So a big part of it for me was really getting clear on that change of career for me as well. So as I mentioned, one of the things that I had started to experience pre having my daughter was this disconnection with the fashion industry and everything that it stood for in terms of the fast pace and the humanitarian and environmental impact, that negative impact. And that felt very far removed from my own values. And so I'd started to question that quite a lot. And I'd been on a bit of a journey in terms of trying to think about, how can I use this lifetime of knowledge and expertise and everything that I have achieved in my career so far, but use that in a much more positive way. And when I was quite heavily pregnant, I went to a kind of workshop in London because I'd happened to connect with somebody who was a personal stylist who trained other personal stylists. And it really just felt like everything kind of came together in that moment because I just fell in love with the whole concept of it. And so that had planted a seed in my mind, when I went on maternity leave, that was something that was really attractive to me in terms of, this is a path that I can take that
Mm,
uses all of my skills and expertise, but allows me to do it in a much more positive way. So I retrained whilst I was on maternity leave. And I think my husband at the time was like, you're insane. Like you're really suffering with like sleep deprivation and you're trying to, you've just brought a new child into the world. Like, is this really, a good time to be doing it? But for me, it was like, wow, I've got this time and this headspace. So I need to
mm.
explore what this looks like for me.
I guess what was needed for you was changing the context.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's interesting is really, so what I talk a lot about on this podcast with most people, I'd say, the journey inside out,
Mm,
you know, in your case, and in the context of style, I guess it's kind of like supporting that journey from the outside,
mm,
but I guess in the right way. But then, like that aspect where how do you even know what style to choose, what suits you, or what you even want? Because
mm,
I remember I was getting rid of a bunch after bunch after bunch. I just can't believe how much of that smart casual I accumulated at some point. Because it was always like just buying something just in case, because I was never
mm.
happy with what I already had.
Yeah, it was never.
So then you think you need another piece, another piece, another
Yeah.
piece, So, but then I was getting rid of it, and then I ended up not having what to wear. And
Mm,
then I didn't know what I even wanted or liked anymore.
mm. It's so common. I mean, that's why people hire a personal stylist, right? Because they don't know where to start and they don't have the tools necessarily to get themselves there. Especially because, most women are time poor and they're juggling a lot. They don't have the time to kind of figure it all out by themselves. And the process that I take my clients through is quite in depth, and I want, it's purposely like that. And sometimes, I've had some clients over the last couple of weeks that they've actually really struggled with that initial moment because it really gets them to go a bit deeper and actually really think about themselves and their identity, and that they're perhaps in a kind of moment of transition in whatever aspect, whether it's career or life or whatever it is. And it can be quite confronting and, quite challenging at first and quite overwhelming. And that's why it's so great to have somebody that can support you
Mm.
through that process, because it's hard.
So could we dive a little bit more into that process? What exactly happens, during that process? Because I imagine it's a lot of, it can be a lot of digging,
Mm,
right? To understand who this person is, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yes, I've really honed in on my process, and the questions that I ask are quite intentional and specific to get people to think in a different way about their style, about themselves, about their environment, their influences, like all of those things. And I've got a really detailed questionnaire that my new clients have to fill in before we even start any work. And then I also have a kind of more style and fashion specific questionnaire which establishes some more details around their specific style, personality, and how they want to show up and the details that they enjoy and things like that. And we kind of combine the two together, and then I will come up with what I think is, my interpretation of their identity and their style, personality, and create that visually, like through a Pinterest board. Very much driven by the information that they've given me, and like I get them to give me images and lots of different things. And then we will have a collaborative session to work through that and really hone in on the details and develop that further, so it really feels like a full expression of who they are and who they're becoming as well. Because often if you're going through a transition, you're stepping up to your next level, perhaps in terms of visibility, that kind of thing. Um, you'll continue to evolve. So it kind of needs to feel a little bit stretchy as well. It's not just, perhaps where you are right now. It's also like, where are you stepping up to, and how does your wardrobe need to serve you, like in that process, basically.
And why do you think women are looking for this kind of service or help? Well, and I guess we are talking in the context of entrepreneurship, about,
Um,
yeah,
Not just entrepreneur. I mean, I work a lot with female founders that, are quite established and they're perhaps stepping up to their next level, but also with senior leaders, in corporate roles.
high
Uh,
achievers,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of the factors is that in some way their style is holding them back from reaching their next level, because there's that kind of mismatch. There's not that congruence in the women that they've become and the way that they're showing up from a image perspective. Sometimes it can be, they're fairly happy with their wardrobe, but they are, going to different bigger events, bigger opportunities, and they're not quite confident with creating outfits for those particular events or purposes, that kind
Do
of
you,
thing.
do you find that there is quite a lot of conflict between, for women, maybe,
Mm.
in terms of what is required and what they actually like.
Yes, it's huge. And especially in male-dominated environments where women
Mm.
can often feel like they're already on the back foot in some sense, and they feel that if they show up in a, particularly feminine way or in a way that, you know, makes them stand out from the norm or what they perceive the expectations to be in terms of their image and the way that they're showing up, they feel like that will really put them on the back foot. And often these
Mm.
thoughts are, sometimes they are valid, but often it's actually stories that we have told ourselves because of, certain narratives that we've absorbed, growing up and over a lifetime of kind of societal conditioning. And in some cases, when these women do show up in their full power, wearing what really is a full expression of who they are, they're surprised by the outcome. Because yes, initially people might be a bit like, oh, look at you, or like, what have you done kind of thing. But it's very quickly, old news, and they actually feel much more powerful. And like you said about your own example, like you perhaps weren't performing to your best when you didn't feel true to yourself. And I think that's the big step change for a lot of those women, because they actually are able to fully show up as themselves, and that brings a lot more powerful outcomes following that. But it's having that bravery to kind of step out of um I don't know what you think might be
Mm.
acceptable, in a certain environment.
So many thoughts are going through my head actually,
Mm.
and I'm just getting these flashes of memories from my journey from work, but specifically from my journey as an entrepreneur. And I remember, and I'd love to dive into that topic more
Mm.
because I think we need to bust some beliefs. So first of all, it's not just the inside job. I mean, the outside and the inside, they are related, and it's
Mm.
a combination of things, which we already said. I think
Mm.
it's so important, but it's so in our society and in our industry is now so common to talk. It's so common to talk about the inner work,
Yeah,
you know. But I guess the style, how you appear is part of that. Still part of the inner
absolutely.
work, isn't it?
Yeah,
But it's
absolutely.
somehow neglected, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? And the other aspect of that is I remember when I first started for a number of years actually, and I was very happy actually with hearing the advice, just do you, like just do
Yeah.
you, just be authentic, just be natural. And what actually it meant to me personally was don't care if you are showing up with makeup or without makeup, bad hair day or whatever, clothes and whatever.
Mm.
And then only later on, I concluded it was not the right approach. But that's the
Yeah.
notion you get when they
Yeah.
tell you just do you, don't overthink, blah, blah,
Mm.
blah, those kind of things. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we underestimate the impact that our appearance and our image has on our energy and the way that we're showing up, not from just from a physical point of view. Um, and I always use the example of myself, like during lockdown when I was working from home and I had my 1-year-old daughter at home with me. And at the time, I was working part-time as a footwear buyer for Amazon. And then I was also running my business. My husband was going out to work, so I was left with my daughter at home because the nurseries were all closed. And mentally, it was such a challenging time, just to kind of keep my head above
Yeah.
water, because I was kind of also transitioning back from being on maternity leave. And I was doing that thing of, I'm not going to make very much effort because easy, I'm just working from home. I'm on Zoom calls most of the
Mm.
time. So I was not even kind of wearing as much makeup as I normally would. I wasn't making the effort with my outfits that I normally would. And I really had to have a word with myself and say to myself, what advice would I give a client or what advice would I give somebody else?
Mm.
And it would be to wear all of your favorite things that make you feel good. So I started to do that and I started to pull out those kind of dresses that I love from my wardrobe or a look beautiful blouse and a skirt. And I wasn't wearing any shoes, but it was incredible to see the impact that it had on my mindset and how I felt mentally just from making that small change. Because I felt more like me and I felt it gave me a very different energy. Whereas when I was kind of settling for this will do, I don't have time to think about it, it's not a priority right now. That was kind of the energy that I was bringing to meetings and bringing to interactions
Yeah.
and I think we really underestimate the impact that that has.
And also, the other thing that I discovered actually is the missed opportunities. And what I mean is, like, if I'm not ready for a selfie, I'm not making a selfie, I'm creating a piece of content and then I'm scrapping, my old photos for some
Mm.
okay photo, and there is none. Because and I like, and right now I'm not doing a selfie because I'm looking crap. So,
Yeah.
you, you
It's so
know.
true. Like that, and I did a post about this morning actually. That even if we don't regard our style as a priority, and we've decided that it's not top of the list, which is understandable. When you're an entrepreneur, there's so many hats that you wear, and there's so many other things that might be up there. It still is a part of your personal brand. It still is a part of your strategy, and people do make their first impressions in the first 7 seconds that they meet you.
Mhm.
And so your style, whether you like it or not, it is a part of your brand and it is a part of your strategy. So you are leaving opportunities and power on the table when you're not making it a part of your strategy. And actually it doesn't take people think, oh, I don't have time for it, it's too much. But if you set aside, a certain amount of time like you would to your marketing strategy or your sales strategy or whatever it is, you don't actually have to spend that much time and it saves you so much of that like mental load and energy that you're wasting every day when you're not clear on how you're showing up and when you're having those moments when you're stood in front of the wardrobe in the morning and you're like, oh,
I
I don't know what to wear.
I know, and like, and actually, I don't know how many insights I've got during the moments when I'm, let's say, putting some makeup on, and I don't wear a lot of makeup, but let's say I'm doing my lashes, right? Aha moment, right?
Mm,
And like, so it's almost like if you think in terms of spending time on something, then
mm,
yeah, maybe it's waste of time, but sometimes that, taking care of yourself and prepping yourself
mm.
actually creates leverage in many ways.
Definitely. And it is an act of self-care as well. And it is a bit like telling yourself that you don't really matter when you don't spend time on it.
That's it.
So there's so many different strands to it that actually have so many benefits. And actually, once you're clear on, this is my outfit formula and these are the different outfits, you literally have like an outfit for every single possible occasion. You then don't spend any time on it because you're so clear on, this is
Mhm.
how I want to show up for X, Y, Z, that you're actually saving time because you're not wasting all of that time, worrying about whatever other people think or those moments.
Yeah, and it reminded me about manifestation.
Mm,
And like, you're not showing love to yourself, the universe is not going to show love to you and not going to receive things.
absolutely. I think there's so much in that intention, and that's what I speak about so much in my work is showing up in the right way because of the intentions that you've set for your career and your life and everything else, it then has such a positive knock-on effect. Because when you feel really good and you feel really confident in yourself, it improves your relationships, it improves how you're showing up, and then you get a very different response from other people, which then can, connect all sorts
Yeah.
of different opportunities.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And are there any, and I know when we had a chat last time, we talked about style in all sorts of different situations, and
Mm,
I was telling you, I've been on the journey upgrading what I wear even at home because
mm,
normally, even if I'm not working,
yeah.
do you think that's super important as well? Like it's almost like it's not about just wearing anything, it's still developing some sort of style even at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, there's this misconception that um to be stylish is to be uncomfortable or, something along those
Mm,
lines. And that's not actually true. I think, there's such easy ways to elevate an outfit without it having to feel uncomfortable. We were talking about this the other day, actually, when I held one of my style roundtables for female leaders, and people were asking about what if I'm just on Zoom, most of the time, how do I, people can't see my full look. Because we were talking about kind of coordination and, colors and stuff like that. And she was kind of like, well, how do I do that on Zoom? Because people can see me from kind of the waist upwards. So we were talking about how you can make an impact on Zoom with things like glasses or jewelry or
mm,
headwear. Color is a particularly effective thing to use on Zoom, especially if you're aware of like color psychology and like the meaning of different colors, but also obviously just what suits you in terms of that will create a completely different appearance. For example, if you were wearing a black top that drains you versus if you're wearing a bright red top that really complements your skin tone and your coloring and brings out your eyes. And people, obviously, that's the point of connection when you're on Zoom, is connecting with people's eyes and connecting with, what you can see on the screen. So I think again, it's underestimated in terms of how effective it can be.
so tell me more about it.
So I
About the
think,
Zoom thing and the colors and the I don't know necklaces or things
mm,
like that.
I mean, it's obviously very specific to depending on your style personality, because if you're a very classic person, that's going to look very different to if you're more, creative and dramatic and, you like, or if you're really romantic and you like, really pretty feminine details. So I think for each person, it's going to look very different. But it's about knowing, again, knowing yourself, knowing which details bring you to life as much as, bring your outfits to life. So it could be things like, a statement necklace or statement earrings, but those particular earrings are going to look different for different people. But from a color perspective, it's understanding like your skin undertone and what works best for your
Mm,
skin tone. And then, leaning on those colors not only to make you look better, but also to make you feel more confident as well, because
mhm,
people do pick up on that. I've been on my own journey with color. When I was a buyer, I used to wear a lot more grays and blacks, and I did have color in my wardrobe, but I think it's a common thing with buyers because the colors are changing so much in terms of trend that sometimes black's just the easiest color to wear. And I have embraced color so much, like, over the last 5 or 6 years, and it's been such an interesting journey to see then how people respond to
mhm.
me as well, and the things that people pick up on that you just wouldn't ever expect.
So funny. Black is actually one of my most common colors, and also I first put something black t-shirt, black top
Mm.
for this recording, and then
Yeah.
changed because I felt it felt too hot. It was, it had very short sleeves, but still it
Mm.
felt too hot, so I changed.
Yeah.
But I'll have that in mind. Hmm.
Well,
Maybe.
it obviously depends on, black might be a great color for you. But if you've got a very warm skin tone,
Mm.
can be particularly draining and kind of highlight the dark circles under your eyes and just make you look quite drawn. I mean, there's ways about, if you really enjoy wearing black, and you've got a warmer skin tone, there's ways about making it more flattering, like gold jewelry to warm it up a bit, bright red lip or something, warmer tones within your makeup. But these are all the things that we kind of talk about when I take my clients through this process.
Very interesting. So, I had another guest on the podcast. She's a branding expert, and it was very interesting to touch on the aspect of like the your brand growing you, as in
Mm,
like w- you do your branding by projecting our identity like 5 years ahead or something
mm,
like that. Do you
yeah.
think is that what you do with styling as well, like kind of like it's not about exactly matching who they are right now, but it's
Mm.
about helping them grow into their next identity?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's an element with style of that kind of past, present, future. Like you need to touch on all of those because some things from the past, like we've left behind because of fear of other people's judgment or,
Mm,
trying to fit into a certain image or a beauty ideal or whatever it is. And actually, those things are things that we really love and we really enjoy. So we need to bring them back, into the present and the
mm-hmm.
future.
Makes so
Um,
much sense. Yeah.
yeah, so there's an element of touching on all timelines when it comes to style because you
Very
need
good.
to really look at the whole picture, because we're not always, I mean, we're definitely not linear and we're always evolving, but there might still be elements, within all of those timelines that are relevant to who you're becoming and who you'll eventually be. But also it's quite fluid. So, we are capturing hopefully like a 5 year window with the style that we're creating, um but I know from my own personal experience with being a business owner that I've explained it before as like personal development on crack because you're evolving so quickly and you're like it really opens up so much work to be done on that personal development level, which then impacts how you want to show up and your style as well. So I think for anyone to promise you that this is going to be what it looks like for the rest of your life is not accurate because there'll always be tweaks and your very kind of soul of who you are is obviously not going to change, and so there's a certain level of your identity that will stay the same, but you'll always be tweaking along the way as you up level and as you change and as you evolve.
Yeah, that's so fascinating, actually. I love what you said about personal development on crack and even the notion of your style being part of your personal development. I
Mm,
think this is so important because this is so overlooked, I have to say. Well, I do care about style a lot. A
mm,
lot. But when I became a mom, I became an entrepreneur. I was doing you, which is me, I thought I didn't have time for myself, whatever. I kind of lost that.
mm.
And I forgot of
Yeah.
who I was. But what you said about looking at your past as well, I intuitively started doing it, and then when we moved back to Lithuania, this environment actually reminded me about who I used to be even more. So like in that moment of confusion, identity confusion, it was very helpful for me to remember who
Mm,
I used to be when I felt really good about myself.
definitely. Powerful.
I even played music. It wasn't an intentional exercise, but I remember I was looking out the window, at the landscape I could recognize. I was playing a music from like 20 years ago, and all of that started, reminding me of who I used to be when I was enjoying life. I was enjoying who I was. That was so helpful. Such a
Yeah,
powerful thing to do.
definitely. I think it's a lot deeper than people realize.
And I am like right now, and I think you are doing rebranding, I think you mentioned,
Yeah.
and me too. And I'm bringing certain elements from my past into my new branding now as
Mm.
well, which is I'm so excited. Like, and I believe I found a place. Those elements are kind of timeless.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
came to realize, and also, and let's maybe we can touch on this as well. Like, you mentioned we keep changing, but at the same time, there might be a thread,
Yeah,
a thread that actually extends into the future, into your
definitely.
future identities. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think at your core, your, if you think about it from a personal branding perspective, like your values are not, once you're really clear on who you are and your values, that's not likely to change that much. And it's kind of the same from a personal style perspective, like what you're drawn to and the things that you enjoy. If you're being really, really true to yourself and who you are, that is going to be a thread that kind of continues. It's more what it actually looks like, and the expression might shift a little bit dependent on um, how you're growing in terms of your, personal and professional development, and maybe the rooms that you're speaking in, or the opportunities that you're creating look different, and then that needs tweaking from an image perspective. But ultimately, you are you, and that you at your core is not going to change dramatically, I don't think.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely agree. And I guess we get something programmed into us when we are very young,
Yeah.
and that kind of never leaves us. A
Yeah.
lot, some of that.
Well, I think it's the same as, in the personal development world, it's often spoken about how um, it's not kind of, what's the wording? I can't think of the wording off the top of my head, but it's not finding yourself, it's peeling back all of the layers to rediscover who you are
It's
at
remembering
your
who you
core.
are. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing with style. It's like it's peeling back all of those layers and all of those layers of conditioning essentially that
Mm,
have kind of masked like who you really are, and getting back to the true essence of you at your core.
amazing. Styling as personal development. Wow, love that.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing. And it is when you think about it. That's so cool. Wow. Okay, so we also talked about how do I say it? Like the previously we touched on materials, right? In
Mm,
terms of energies and stuff like that. Talk to
mm.
me about that as well. I think this is something super important as well, and I think so many, if most people are not even considering this aspect of of their
No.
style and what they are wearing and even what they have in their environment.
Yeah, so I mean, my my kind of initial understanding of materials was, from my background of being a buyer, was very like technical, and I knew a lot about fabric from a fit perspective, and what things were made from. And then I think as I developed as a stylist in terms of wanting to focus more on sustainability, then fabric became a really important part of that. So making more intentional choices in terms of what is the fabric made of, where does it come from, what's the kind of processing and the environmental impact of that fabric became more important. And then, what does that fabric do to my skin? How does it feel? And, that's particularly important for clients who are going through the menopause, or they, or even I've had clients that are allergic to certain things, and we have to be really intentional about what people are wearing. But there's another layer to it as well, which is from an energetic point of view. So different fabrics have different energy.
Frequencies?
Yeah,
Wearing frequencies, yeah.
yeah, frequency. And so wearing kind of opposing fabrics within an outfit can be kind of detrimental, for want of a better word. Uh,
Mm.
and those are kind of natural fabrics that we're encouraged to buy into from a sustainability point of view, like organic cotton and things like that, have a much more positive energetic frequency than things like polyester that are man-made from plastic, which is essentially derived from oil, which has a very different frequency. So yeah, I mean, I'm still quite early on in my journey of understanding all of this, but it just shows you like how many different layers there are to style and what you're wearing.
I know this is pretty much new to me as well, and it was so fascinating to, and I didn't even hear about it directly, on this topic, but I was reading about muscle testing, and the
Mm,
advice was to take off the anything synthetic,
yeah.
for muscle testing. I was like, wow, I was like, because I was already avoiding synthetic materials because of the skin, what it feels
Mm,
like, the sweating factor,
mm,
whatever, those kind of things. But then this vibration
mm.
side of things, crazy.
And I think people are talking a lot more now, about energy and about grounding and, looking after ourselves from a spiritual or, nervous system perspective. And from a grounding perspective, I've been told in the past that if you wear polyester and those man-made fabrics and you're trying to ground yourself, that doesn't work either, because it's like hitting up against something that's natural with something that's man-made. And if you truly want to ground yourself, that you need to wear cotton or
Imagine all these yogis wearing all these.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
the
God.
Lululemon like yoga pants that are probably made
Oh,
from
that is,
oil.
oh my God, that is crazy.
Yeah.
Wow, and just the other thing, like if you are showing up on Zoom or public speaking or something, I guess you don't want to wear anything synthetic.
No, I mean, I spoke about this recently actually, because I did a kind of workshop for a TEDx speakers group, and the TEDx coach was asking me about, do's and don'ts and best practice for what you're wearing on stage. And I said to him, obviously, when you're under a spotlight, which you are for TED because you're on that
Yeah.
circle,
Mm-hmm.
and it's quite a dark stage setting, you will be feeling quite hot and bothered, anyway. And if you're wearing polyester or synthetic materials, it's going to make you feel even hotter and, sweaty and
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But also it's thinking about, you're mic'd up and you're on camera as well. So you don't want anything that's scratchy or noisy. You want things that are kind of quite well fitted and um, don't cause those kind of distractions when it comes to the microphone or to the filming of it.
Yeah, yeah. And then your own energy and vibration and how synthetic clothing can go against you.
Mm,
Here you are boosting up your confidence and doing all these
mm,
things, and then you are wearing something synthetic.
Mm.
and dimming that, you know,
Yeah.
that's so fascinating. Oh my God. So okay, so because I talk a lot about freedom
Mm.
and create running a business from the place of freedom.
Mm.
How do you think styling and generally looking after yourself, plays into all of this, operating from the place of freedom and flow?
I think it's being true to yourself and fully expressing yourself
Mm,
without those kind of limitations of expectations or society have given you, and fully feeling like you can express yourself gives you so much freedom, and it might feel quite like you're kind of going against the grain, which is the nature of being an entrepreneur anyway, but once you overcome that initial barrier, then it's so powerful in terms of how you feel, but also, as we said earlier, about it is an act of self-care and it is an act of
mhm,
looking after yourself. And the whole point of having a freedom business is that you are prioritizing your health as well
mm.
as the wealth of the business, or however you look at it, financial freedom as well.
So how would you redefine the just do you advice? Because as I mentioned, I was doing me,
Yeah.
but I wasn't doing it correctly. I was doing it from the place of not taking proper care about myself or how I come across, you know.
I suppose it's I suppose it's like do you but with intention. Um so absolutely do you, and be true to yourself, but do it with intention as to what you're wanting to achieve, and the person that you're wanting to present to the world. You've got to think about it from that perspective as well. And that doesn't have to be another job and like tiresome and something else that you've got to think about. It gets to be fun, it gets to be a way to express yourself, it gets to be a powerful tool that you can lean on that supports your well-being and supports your journey essentially. And I think
Mhm.
we have to reframe it, because style should be fun, it should be self-expression, it should be joy, it should be that feeling of when you're little and you dress up in all the crazy things because you're trying
Mm,
to experiment and find who you are. And that is what style should be. And I think I quite often quote Iris Apfel, because she always used to say, like, when did we lose that childlike joy of dressing up? And often it
mm,
is when we become teenagers and we start to be more aware of our peers and what they're wearing and fitting in, and that kind of pack mentality of like, I need to fit in with what everyone else is wearing. And that's kind of where it begins, I think. And we can easily lose ourselves in that.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. Beautiful. So if somebody listening is stuck, like she is going through some sort of identity crisis or, questioning herself, who the hell am I? And obviously it's very hard to operate properly, from that kind of place, and
Mm,
especially feel for high achieving
mm.
women because they are the ones who will do it anyway, even if
Yeah,
it's off.
yeah, it's totally me.
So what could they do? What one easy shift they could try and make, like starting today?
I think part of it is giving yourself permission to experiment, and even if it's just at home with your own wardrobe, um, you know, getting your clothes out and um being really true to yourself in terms of like, does this actually serve me? Do I actually enjoy wearing it? Do I like it? Does it fit me? All of those things. Because again, from an energy perspective, we don't realize um, how detrimental it is to our self-esteem and how we feel to hold on to all of this like baggage of all these things that no longer serve us and just don't work for whatever reason. And it's very therapeutic to let go of or rework or repurpose those pieces, and to actually have a wardrobe that serves you, that you love, that makes you feel good. Um, that is always the starting point that I would suggest. I mean, there's other things as well, like, creating a Pinterest board of inspiration to really
Mm-hmm.
get an idea of that vision that you're wanting to create, and then trying to recreate that with your own wardrobe to start off with. There's lots of different tips like that, but
I guess,
ultimately,
yeah, that's a good insight, actually. I guess start exploring.
yeah,
As
experimenting.
much as that, start exploring. And then I was gonna end this conversation, but another question landed, and another realization that I recently had, relatively recently, as I started redoing my wardrobe and things,
Mm,
it had something to do uh, with abundance mindset
mm,
and attachment to various pieces that I wasn't even wearing
mm.
for years, but somehow in my mind was like, maybe one day I will look at
Yeah,
it, it's still okay, whatever. Or it's not, oh, there's a hole there or something, and you can see the signs of wearing, but then, and so you keep it. But then I was realizing if I release them, like I'm telling myself there's enough.
yeah, definitely. That whole one day mentality is really detrimental, especially when it comes to body image. And there's so many women have those items in their wardrobe where it's like, one day I'll fit into that, or they buy things in the sale that are a size smaller, and it's like diet inspiration, which I hate so much. Um, but all of those things are come from a scarcity lack kind of place, which is not, like you said, is not the best place to be.
So it kind of worked. You can almost use your wardrobe, your style to boost your abundance mindset,
Yeah.
by letting go and telling yourself there will always be enough,
Mm. And
you
you're
know.
enough as you are, I think, is a big part.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
You don't
yeah.
have to be somebody else. You don't have to be a size, whatever it is. You're exactly enough as you are.
And so how about what do you have to say about underwear?
Oh, we were talking about this the other day as well, because I had in my style roundtable, I had given some advice to somebody to go and get a bra fitting. Um, and she's in the UK, so I said to her I'd suggest like going to John Lewis, because there's lots of different brands, and you get the proper fitting experience for free, but you get to, experiment with lots of different brands. Because underwear is so powerful, and again, something that we probably don't focus enough on or refresh enough. And we can be wearing completely the wrong bra size without really knowing it. And it can make such a big difference, not just to how we feel ourselves, but also to how the clothing looks on us as well.
Mm.
It's amazing what a difference it makes. And she had gone away and done this, and she came back and she was like, I just wanted to tell you, like, wow, it was such a amazing experience, and it made me feel really good, but also it's completely changed like the silhouette of certain things. So I think underwear can be really powerful, but it's that kind of self-care as well.
That's it, when nobody sees, what you do when nobody
Mm,
sees. And in Lithuania, we have this folk saying, I forgot about it and then recently remembered it, and I don't even know if it's true. And I don't know if I can translate it properly, but it basically says that French woman's underwear shows in her eyes or something like that.
yeah, so
You
true.
know, so it's how you, and I don't even know if that's true or whatever, but the point is obviously is that energetic
Mm,
effect of how you treat yourself.
yeah, it shows on the outside as well. And I think I talk about this from a color perspective as well, because sometimes if you're nervous of wearing color, and you're quite new to wearing color, but you really want to embrace it, I say to start with underwear. So like red underwear, for example, like nobody else is going to see it. So start getting yourself comfortable with wearing that color and then build it up gradually. So start with your underwear and then have an accessory and then have a piece of clothing and just build up your confidence with it.
Very cool. I love this topic. So I ask all my guests three blitz questions. So I'll do that to you as well. But first, if you could tell a bit more about who you work with and where people can connect with you.
Yes, I mainly work with established kind of female founders or senior leaders. And you can find me on all the kind of social media platforms. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. At the moment, I'm Lux Leopard Lifestyle, and that will be changing with my rebrand. But yeah, you can find me, and I'm sure it will redirect once I rebrand as well.
I'll put the links in the show notes, so of course, as well. Okay, the questions. So the first one is, what change would you like to see in the world?
Oh, great question. I would love for people and planet to be at the forefront of every decision that we make rather than profit. I think it would make such a huge difference to everybody and to the future of the world for, future generations.
Yeah, absolutely. And all the three words start with P, people, planet, and profit.
Mm.
So interesting. Okay, the next one is, what impact would you personally like to create?
I guess it's similar. So a big part of my mission is to empower women to kind of show up exactly as themselves, but in their full power. And I quite often work with kind of purpose-led women who have some kind, they're trailblazers, change makers, like they really they're here to make a difference and to make a positive impact. And a kind of sideline to my own positive impact in that sense is the kind of rooting in sustainability and that whole ethos as well, and trying to change people's perceptions of what it is to be, sustainable and more intentional.
I love that. Beautiful. The last one is, when you hear from grind to grace, which is the name of this podcast,
Mm.
what goes through your mind?
I love the name. It
Me
really
too.
speaks to me. I mean, as we've kind of touched on a little bit, but not so much in my story. Like I've definitely gone from that grind in the corporate world of that fast pace, um, feeling very much like it's life or death when it really isn't. To finding kind of carving a path that is much more true to me and who I am and the impact that I want to have. And it's not to say that that is always perfect or that there are definitely still elements of grind in there. And I think it's almost an unlearning that you have to go through when you've
Absolutely, yeah.
been in that world. But it definitely feels a lot um, freer and more true to me.
Yeah. Okay. Very, very cool. Thank you so much. It was an amazing conversation. I love talking about these kind of things, anything style, aesthetics, things like that. And especially in this context about grind, about running a business and the energy and the frequency. Amazing.
Thank you. It's been really interesting.
Yeah. And the one listening, I just cannot imagine that you didn't love this,
Mhm.
which is why, obviously, because we are on a mission. So you absolutely need to send this to somebody who you think would need it, and follow, subscribe, and I'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening. Stay graceful.